Good evening, everybody. Je vous remercie pour votre participation à cette assemblée virtuelle pour les citoyens et citoyennes de Timmins Bay James pour le Nord et pour tout le Canada. I'm Charlie Angus. I want to really thank you for joining us at this time. We are in the midst of one of the darkest moments, I think, in Canadian history with this third wave. We know people have a lot of questions. We came here tonight to offer your opportunity to ask questions, to get answers. We have our leader, Jagmeet Singh, my good colleagues, Gilles Bisson and Guy Bourgoin. I'm going to turn it over to Laurent Carbonneau. He's going to be the host for tonight. He's going to take the questions, and we're going to do our best to work through and get as many answers to you as possible so that you have a sense of the work that we are doing to fight for you to get us through to the other side in a much safer and a more sustainable Canada. Thank you. Merci, Miigwech.
Merci, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie. And merci beaucoup à tout le monde pour nous joindre ce soir. Thanks for everyone for joining us tonight. I'm here to keep everyone sort of on time and on track and to keep the questions rolling. I just want to start by acknowledging that Timmins James Bay is on Treaty 9 territory and on the traditional territory of the Ojibwa Chippewa people, the Mushkegowuk Cree, the Algonquin people, and the Métis peoples of Northern Ontario. And of course, I'd like to welcome our fantastic speakers tonight. Of course, we have Charlie Angus, who very kindly introduced me there, Jagmeet Singh, leader of Canada's NDP, Gilles Bisson, a member of the Ontario legislature for Timmins, and Guy Bourgoin, a member of Ontario's provincial parliament for Mushkegowuk James Bay. Gilles, can I give you 1 minute to talk a little bit about the work you've been doing in the Ontario legislature? Gilles, you are muted.
There we go. Found the button. There we go. No, a lot of what we do is working with others such as Charlie, our municipal council and others, Chamber of Commerce, you name it, and trying to navigate our way through this whole pandemic. The province has put in place different things to respond to the pandemic. Some of them are pretty lackluster. For example, what they just recently did or didn't do with sick pay. I've never seen a government run to the federal government so fast to say, here, the ball's in your court. We're not going to do a sick pay in Ontario. So, we've been working with Charlie and with others trying to respond. People, I think, in Ontario are somewhat confused. Mr. Ford has been really good at giving good press conferences in the early beginnings of this pandemic. He was saying all the right things. I think he raised people's confidence by doing that. But I think as people saw what he didn't do after those announcements, it was a little bit like the old story, the emperor with no clothes. So Guy, myself, John Vantoff, Charlie, the mayor, and other people, we've all been sort of like trying to work our way through this as best as we can and get answers for people and trying to get the government to actually do what it is they say they do.
Thank you, Gilles. Et Guy, est-ce que je peux vous donner une petite minute aussi pour parler un petit peu de votre travail?
Écoute, si vous me permettez, je vais le faire en français juste pour répéter un petit peu ce que Gilles a dit en anglais. Écoute, premièrement, Charlie, je te remercie de nous avoir invités à participer à cette section Zoom-là. Jagmeet, merci de participer au Zoom. Écoute, comme Gilles a dit en anglais, on a un gouvernement Ford qui est bon pour parler, mais quand ça arrive pour agir, on a vu qu'au début de la pandémie, tout était beau, mais à mesure que la pandémie avançait puis que on voit que les décisions qu'il faut qu'ils se prennent, il faut que ça soit fort, il faut que ça aille là. On voit que c'est un gouvernement qui a laissé tomber. La pandémie a pris le dessus. Il a perdu contrôle de la pandémie. C'est la première fois qu'on voit un gouvernement provincial courir vers le fédéral pour de l'aide, comme qu'on a vu là. C'est sûr qu'on travaille avec les municipalités, les chambres de commerce, les gouvernements fédéraux. On travaille avec tous les partenaires dans la région pour adresser les concerns. Mais c'est un peu déplorable de voir la situation que la province est dedans en cause d'un gouvernement qui n'était pas prêt à suivre les consignes de la santé publique. Merci.
Un grand merci, Guy. Est-ce que je peux demander à notre chef, Jagmeet Singh, de nous donner ses paroles pour ouvrir notre session? Can I ask Jagmeet Singh, our leader, to give us some words to open our town hall this evening?
Absolutely. Great honor to be here with Charlie and Gilles, Guy, great defenders of the North and great fighters. A big shout out to the provincial NDP for all the work they're doing in Ontario. And Charlie and I have been fighting at the federal level to get help to people. And we know this pandemic has been so tough. People have lost their jobs, they've lost their small businesses, and so many people have lost their lives. And we've been there to try to make sure the response is better and get help to people in need. And just want to let folks know, every step of the way, we saw this Liberal government try to do the minimum. They brought in wage subsidy at 10%. Covering 10% of someone's salary is not enough to keep jobs. We fought hard. We brought together some unlikely partners, brought together the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business with a union president, Unifor, and myself, when we fought hard to increase that wage subsidy to 75%. That meant we covered 75% of workers' salaries. Millions of people kept their jobs because of that. We were there to fight for people. We were there to double the CERB to get more people support that they needed to pay their bills, to stay in their homes. We fought to get help for students. We fought to get in a federal paid sick leave, which is simply not good enough. We need more. We need that the Liberal government didn't deliver what we wanted, and we're going to keep on fighting. Doug Ford, sadly, has been a train wreck, and it's put lives at risk. And Justin Trudeau thinks he can get off by just putting his hands up and saying, oh, I've done my part. We're here to say no. We're here to fight for people, fight for the help they need. In this third wave, we've seen some really devastating results, and we are here for you. We're going to keep on fighting for you. We've shown so far what you get when you get New Democrats, whether provincial or federal. You get fighters on your side, and we're going to keep up that fight. And looking forward to your questions and any concerns you have. C'est un grand honneur d'être ici pour discuter les enjeux, mais je veux vous assurer que les néo-démocrates, même si c'est le niveau provincial, fédéral, on est là pour vous, on se bat pour vous, on a montré ça, on va continuer de faire ça. Je sais que c'est une troisième vague qui frappe fort, mais on est là pour défendre les intérêts de monsieur, madame, tout le monde, et on va continuer de faire nos efforts pour vous aider. Merci beaucoup, c'est vraiment un honneur d'être ici dans le nord de l'Ontario virtuellement.
Thank you, Jagmeet.
Ton français est impeccable.
Exactement.
Oh, vous êtes très gentil.
Thank you, Jagmeet. It's always a pleasure to have you in the digital north, as it were. Charlie, I will just give it to you as our local member of parliament up here to give us some remarks before we launch into our Q&A.
Well, merci Laurent. Je suis très fier d'être ici avec le chef de notre parti, Jagmeet Singh. Il était un leader extraordinaire, particulièrement durant la bataille de préserver l'institution de Laurentienne. Jagmeet est très fort pour forcer le gouvernement de respecter leurs obligations pour la communauté franco-ontarienne, pour les Autochtones et pour les gens et les citoyens du Nord-Ontario. I just want to say a few words in terms of the work that we've been doing. And I want to say, it's April 27th. Tomorrow's a day of mourning. The reason we have a day of mourning, April 28th, is because in 1914, it was the miners of Northern Ontario who forced the government to bring in workers' compensation. 100 years later, people around the world remember that day. They don't remember that it was the miners in Northern Ontario that brought in workers' compensation. But the day of mourning is something that we have all lived in our lives. There's not a person who's grown up in a mining or lumber town who hasn't lost someone from a workplace injury. That's the story of our lives. That's the story of our families. Gilles Bisson, who fought the big fight for worker compensation for the gold mining widows, the fights in Elliott Lake. And today, we're seeing frontline workers dying in their hundreds because of government negligence. Young families on the front lines dying and getting sick because of negligence and the refusal to step up. So what we're dealing with is very serious stuff. I want to just cover just a couple of quick things. Throughout the pandemic, our focus has been getting our people through. Our office is calling people every day. We're calling and seeing how people are doing. We're dealing with your issues. If you've got issues, and if you've got issues tonight and you need help with something, let us know. We will be there for you. We've been working with the mayors of the North. We've been working with the Chamber of Commerce to save small business. We forced the government to recognize the need to make FedNor an independent standalone agency, which it is now. That's about economic development. We are going to get that through. In the battle for Laurentian, the Liberals are saying, hey, don't expect any help from the feds. We're saying that's not good enough. Our leader has been pushing the Prime Minister. My colleague, Alexandre Boulris, has pushed at the Official Languages Committee on Laurentian. My colleague, Lindsay Matheson, is pushing right now at the Status of Women's Committee to get an investigation in the killing of the midwifery program. The midwifery program, which is so important for rural Francophone, for the Northern Indigenous communities. We're going to fight for these. Liberals might say, oh, well, that's tough. It's too bad. And Rob Ford or Doug Ford, whoever, whatever the Fords are, might say it's no big deal to kill a Northern institution. Not us. We built that institution. We built that because we, as New Democrats and people of the North, cared for it, and we will fight for it. That's why we're here. So I just want to turn it over to you now, our people, to ask questions so you can find out what we are doing to help. And I'm really, really looking forward to hearing your questions, and we'll help you whatever way you need. We're here for you, whether it's a federal issue, provincial issue, local issue. What do you need? How can we help?
Un grand merci, Charlie, et merci tout le monde pour nous joindre ce soir. Je veux juste vous dire que vous pouvez demander toutes vos questions dans le chat et nous verrons si on pourra demander des questions en direct. D'abord, thanks for everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Charlie, for those great words. And I just want to flag to everyone, please ask your questions in the chat here in Zoom, and we will see what we can do about getting folks to ask questions live and in living color. I just want to make a quick note before we start of the NDP's anti-harassment and equity statement, which I believe our good folks at the party office will now drop into the chat for anyone's reference. But with that having been said, I would just like to ask our first question that I received a little before we got underway here from Beta, who asks regarding the water crisis facing Indigenous communities. Mr. Angus has been a key advocate for promoting all Canadians having access to clean drinking water. Charlie, can you talk about what we would be doing differently right now to make sure that everyone has access to clean drinking water?
Well, I thank you so much for the question, and I can tell you, Jagmeet has seen the water crisis in the north. Guy Bourgoin and I have been fighting in Attawapiskat. Gilles Bisson has been on the water crisis since, back in the days of Saskatchewan. What we're dealing with is a number of factors. When the government makes these announcements that they're going to end all boiled water advisories, you can bet your bottom dollar that this is not about changing things. This is about declaring victory and leaving. This is what happens in First Nation communities all the time. They're not building the plants that are needed. They're not addressing the larger infrastructure failings. They're putting in plants in some communities where the pipes are all rotted. They're putting in plants in some communities where they can't even connect the pipes. We have pushed the government to say we need the holistic approach. Let's look at each community. For example, at Attawapiskat, they're getting their water from a stagnant water pool. I don't care how much chemicals you pour into that stagnant water. It's not going to make safe water. Why are we not looking at getting water from a clean water source? In Northern Ontario, we have multiple clean water sources. It just means the government has to spend a little more money putting the pipe a little further. So what we need to do is work, particularly in our region. Treaty 9, the Anishinaabe Nation does an extraordinary job. They know what they're doing. The communities know what the problem is. We sit down with them and map out what does proper municipal-like infrastructure mean? Because the big difference is you can go to any municipality and they have standards, they have obligations, and you go to a reserve and it's whatever the federal government is going to give you. That's not how you run water. So Mr. Trudeau is not going to meet his promises. It doesn't matter how many nice words they use. It will not change what's happening in Niskandaga, Nibamtung, and Attawapiskat. We need a coherent plan. We've been pushing for that plan. We're trying to make the government respect that plan. But until we have a plan that's built with the communities in mind, we're not going to get where we need to get. But we will fight to force them to improve what they're doing right now.
Thanks, Charlie. I just want to note, we're looking into getting folks asking questions directly. And I just want to note, we'll just ask folks to keep it to 30 seconds. And we will probably try to do the next question after this one that way. Juste pour dire à tout le monde que nous aimerions bien aller en direct avec les questions, avec les vidéos et tout ça. Mais on demande seulement que vous respectez une limite de 30 secondes pour votre question. Et on va commencer avec les questions après celles qui viennent. So Charlie, just one more question, or I guess someone else can take it if they would like. We've got a question from Phoebe from Moose Factory, who'd like to ask a question about services and programs for people's special needs and how we can fill in the gaps for training and operational dollars to ensure that people in isolated and northern communities are getting support.
For special needs? Well, I definitely thank Phoebe, and I want to come see you guys again, and we want to get up there. Guy, do you have something specific you would want to respond in terms of the needs for people with special needs that we're dealing with up in Moose Factory and region?
Yeah, no, there shouldn't be treated any differently anywhere in Ontario. You deserve the same services that we get throughout. And in fact, Northern Ontario, even the far north, should be getting more. And simply put, because we have less right now, just to bring us up to speed to where other places in Ontario are, we need more money. We need more support for people in need with that needs of services. I'm trying to remember the place that they shut down when I was elected. The Billy was for people, the young adults with I can't remember.
That's in Moose Factory, and
yeah,
I was the chairperson of the Education Authority. I'm Phoebe Sutherland, and I'm actually a current board member of the Cochrane-Timiskaming Resource Center, and I just attended a board meeting via Zoom, but I would normally travel down. And I'm ending my term on OASIS, which is the Ontario Agency for Supporting Individuals with Special Needs. So I am aware of those links, but one of the frustrating things is the actual follow through with funding.
Yep. Yep.
And so I am aware of the programs. I'm really proud of the Billy Bio program and the work of the CTRC to expand those James-based services. But with COVID,
excellent program.
Phoebe, I have a question for you. Are you do parents get passport funding?
Oh yeah.
So you are getting
parents, passport funding through Moose Cree. Because of the COVID, it has affected the program. I'm not on the board anymore, but in our community, it does feel like our program still, because I grew up, I knew Billy Bio, so he impacted my life, and he was he was somebody who I want to make sure that legacy of that program, that we as Moose Cree members, we brought that, but there was all those operational dollar shortages, and we needed more training to make sure that our people were trained in, DS, because, it takes a special person to care for special people.
Absolutely. And
family also need a break. They need a place that at least they can bring their family members and be able to recharge the battery. And that's not there either. There's not the support. We need more support in that way also. But Billy was a great place, and unfortunately they cut the funding.
And before we go on, I do want to say, Phoebe, I'm going out with your dogs when the COVID crisis is over. I'm going out with your dogs there. I got an awesome picture of you and me and the dog team. So.
Okay. Thanks so much, Phoebe. Really appreciate the question, and thanks everyone for chipping in on that response. I have a question here from Yuksem Wan, and I would like her to ask her in person if she's available on camera here about long-term care and what the next steps are in the north.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to thank Charlie and Jagmeet and everyone for the advocacy that they've had in long-term care over the pandemic. One of my fears is that now that in long-term care, the vaccinations are there and we're not hearing about it as much in the news, that crisis that became so evident when we were in the beginning of the pandemic, that now it's going to die down. And I know that the Liberals announced some little promises about maybe another focus group or committee that they're going to strike for long-term care going forward for national standards. But I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more about what the plan is, especially for long-term care in the north, where people don't have it, especially in the smaller communities.
Jill, you look like you want to chip in on that?
Yeah, if nobody wants to go, because mostly a provincial responsibility on long-term care. Two things. One is this pandemic showed us just to what point that this system is failing. One of the first things that Ford did when he came to government, he cut the inspections. And as a result, a lot of the long-term care facilities, especially the private ones, is where we had the most of our problems. And what's made it even worse is they passed legislation, I believe it was last spring or last fall, summer sometime, that they're making it so that the long-term care home cannot get sued by family members as a result of whatever happened to happen to them during this pandemic. So one of the things that New Democrats are saying is we need to move to a public system. It's always been Tommy Douglas's view that our healthcare system should be one that's public. And one of the positions that we take is that over a period of time, we need to transition to a fully public system, go to 4 hours of care, make sure that we have adequate home care, because it's not, home care, long-term care is fine, but if people can live at home independently with supports, they would much rather do that and then invest in the long-term care after.
I just like
Just
to
to
ask
build on that.
Oh, thank you, Jagmeet. I was just going to call you in. So
Yeah, no,
there
just
you go.
build on that. Sheila is this is a great tag team. Federal, provincial, the Ontario NDP released a really excellent plan to get profit out of long-term care. And at the federal level, we made that same commitment. We know that with a federal government that works with provincial governments, we want to achieve a fully public healthcare system. We know that profit directly meant worse conditions of care for seniors in long-term care. Wherever it was private, there was worse care. There were some of the worst conditions, horrible conditions for our loved ones that are already so vulnerable. So Rivera is the second largest provider of long-term care services. Right now, it is completely owned by a federal agency. So we've been pushing to say, let's make that public and let's work with providing the funding to get rid of profit out of our healthcare system entirely, specifically in long-term care. And let's make sure we provide the best quality care to folks who've lived their whole life, contributed their whole life and given so much. At a minimum, they should be able to retire with dignity and respect. And that's what New Democrats are all about.
Thanks so much, Jagmeet.
If I can just add,
go ahead, Guy.
Okay, sorry about that. If I can just add, we all know the story what happened in Kapuskasing, where 16 people died in a long-term care home, and this was a private home, and this is a francophone bed. As you know, there's a huge shortage of francophone beds. We wait quite a bit in my riding for beds, but again, knowing the situation, because the extended care is a C home. By 2025, these homes have to be closed. Government announced more beds, and yet we're not in it. We need to have more beds in our area so that we can address the concern or the demand for the francophone beds. And yet we are not, we don't see any investment in our riding, to address that. There was some in Hearst. There was 12 beds in Hearst. But yet we know that if we don't, these 65 beds may be in jeopardy if they don't invest more in our area. With Le Manoir, who could be, it's built. It could be built a second story. There's all kinds of options that can be there. Yet there's no announcement to address the situation with the C home that needs to close by 2025.
Un grand merci, Guy. Un grand merci à Jagmeet aussi pour sa très bonne réponse. I'd like to pass next to Dr. Andrea Serrata. I see you've got a question here about the overdose crisis. We can get you on video.
Absolutely. So I am on video. Can you see me?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So Mr. Singh, as I say in the chat, I'm Dr. Andrea Serrata, and I'm actually a doctor who cares for injection drug users and people living in homelessness and women in the survival sex trade. I've also pioneered over the past 5 years the safer supply approach that's really spreading across the country to address this drug policy crisis that's really killed 21,000 Canadians to date. This crisis is disproportionately affecting workers in marginalized communities, and increasingly the overdose rates in the north are surpassing the overdose rates in the south. So, Mr. Singh, the only barrier to safe supply saving tens of thousands of lives in Canada and ending the overdose epidemic, which is really a drug policy epidemic, is government will. I know how to save these lives, but government won't get out of the way. They won't give me the tools I need, and so people continue to die every single day. So Mr. Singh, I want to know, what will you do differently to support evidence-based solutions, not morality-based solutions, and would you be willing to engage in a direct conversation with me on safer supply?
Thanks so much for your question, and just thank you for your work. This is such difficult work while we're in the midst of this global COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of the other crises seem to be pushed aside or forgotten, and the opioid crisis is one that is hitting all of Canada, like you mentioned, extremely hard, and in particular the North. Charlie's been bringing it up a number of times with me, how serious things are in the North. And so your work, being on the front lines, supporting people, saving lives, I just want to thank you for that. And I have a background in science, and I did a biology degree and then worked in the criminal justice field. And on both sides of that, I saw one, the approach where arresting people who are dealing with addiction, dealing with mental health, dealing with poverty. I represented clients who were being put in jail who didn't have a criminal justice problem. They had a health problem. And so I saw it from that aspect. And then as someone who studied the science, I absolutely agree with you. The approach we're taking is not getting our outcome. If the goal is to save lives, our policies don't match our goals. And you're absolutely right. There is a disconnect between what our stated goals are, which is people say they want to save lives. Our policies are not matching that up. And so I am prepared to have that type of conversation. Let's look at a health-based, a care-based, a compassion-based response. If we want to save lives and stop this epidemic, stop the opioid crisis, we know the evidence has a path forward, which has to change the approach we've taken, because the approach we've taken has not worked. That's just a fact. It has not worked. We've got to change that approach if we want a different outcome. And I'm prepared to make those, to have that honest and tough conversation about the difference we need to make. And like you said, people already know the evidence is out there. A care-based approach is better. There are better ways to do this. And we can save lives if we took that approach. And I'm all for it. I think people are finally seeing that this crisis isn't getting worse. It's not getting any better. Ignoring it or continuing down the same path, which is not working, is just not good enough. So I'm absolutely prepared to take that stance and to work with anyone that wants to chart out this better course, a new course, and one where doctors like yourself know the steps that we need to take. We just need to start listening to the experts and following the evidence.
Thank you. And before we go on, I would just like to add on at the local level. I know that people have been really frustrated by the horrific levels of death that we've seen from opioids across the North. And it is not reassuring, but it's important for people to know this is a crisis in every single community in this country. It cuts across every single demographic. One of the things that's really impressed me about Timmins is there's been a real response of people trying to find solutions. And I know on the Facebook chat rooms and that people sometimes are negative and attacking, but we have a real problem with homelessness. We have a drug issue. And we're not going to, and the Timmins police said it at one of the public meetings. They said, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. So one of the things that we've been doing a lot is working with the city, working with our Gilles, working with people on the ground trying to find solutions. So I just want to let people know that, Mushkegowuk came up with the Firekeepers proposal to get Indigenous people teams on the street to work with the homeless 24/7 to keep people alive. Number one, keep people alive, keep our communities safe. We fought for that. We got the funding at the federal level. Gilles got money at the provincial level. So we have teams on the ground now dealing with people who fell through the cracks. Many of the Indigenous community who are marginalized, who are homeless and who have opioids are not getting served right now. We've got a team now to serve them. Is it the solution? No, but it is part of the solution. And that's the thing is it's going to be a lot of steps that we have to take to get us through. But I really do want to give a shout out to a lot of people who are doing the frontline work to keep people alive, and we've got to stay focused. And I thank Dr. Sereda for, putting this in perspective. We need to think smarter, and Jagmeet definitely knows a lot more about this issue than I do. He's spoken about it a lot, but I'm seeing it on the ground. He's seen it from policy. We want to make a difference.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Jagmeet. And thank you, of course, Dr. Sereda, both for the question and for the work you're doing. It's really, really important. I'd just like to just let people know, feel free to re-ask a question. I'm scrolling through the bar here and it's getting filled up pretty quick. So if I'm not seeing stuff, please feel free to ask again. S'il vous plaît, si vous avez une question et je n'ai pas encore demandé à nos invités, n'hésitez pas à le resoumettre parce qu'il y a des chances que, avec la vitesse qui vienne, il y a des chances que je l'ai manqué. Oh no, I was muted the whole time. Thank you, everyone.
Just for the last second.
Just for the last second.
Yeah, just for the last couple seconds. We got most of it.
Okay. A question about delays in the immigration process. Emma Laxing, would you like to ask that question live?
Hi.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Jagmeet, for being here in our community to ask, let us ask questions about something. So my question is regarding the immigration process. As we know, because of COVID, the immigration process is too long, and the IRCC has a short staff, and they are not paying like sick leaves to them. And as we in our community, we have few people who are helping us with the immigration, but those are like part-time, and they cannot give their full-time to us to help us out. As I am a student, and I want to start my own business, so I can help Canada to develop more economy to help my community. So as I'm still on work on my work permit, and I don't have all my stuff, so I can start my own business as a permanent residence. So delays in this process taking so much the crisis to the economic crisis to the Canada, and I just want to know is there any possibility if we can push the through the government to hire more staff, or whatever we have a part-time staff, we can make them full-time and pay them sick leave so they can fast their process, and we can help Canada to grow their economy and help them out from the economic crisis. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Amolik Singh. And your question, a lot of New Democrat values there. One, we want to give people full-time instead of part-time and get people paid sick leave. Absolutely. But the IRCC issue that you've raised, there is chronic underfunding and short staff, and there's been lots of delays in applications. And I think you've really captured one of the problems. When there's delays, it means people like you who want to help out, start up a business, contribute to the economy, create jobs, create a good service, are unable to contribute. So we miss out on the contributions of people. Gilles always tells me about how there's so many opportunities in the North that we need more folks in the North. We need more people to come out there. And Charlie and Guy talk often about the contributions of new Canadians coming into the North and how they help out. And we need to have an immigration system that works, that is clear, it's predictable, it's transparent, and people can then make decisions around their lives. This is about planning your life and knowing that, okay, my process or my application will be processed by a certain date. You can then plan out the future, plan out what you want to do next and how you want to contribute. I think we need to do a better job. And this has been an ongoing issue with both Liberal and Conservative governments. They haven't been able to fix the backlogs and the delays. We need to get better at this and make sure we're not missing out on the opportunity that new Canadians can offer to growth in Canada, to jobs, to creating business, to supporting communities. So absolutely something worth considering, and something that we've been turning our mind to.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Singh, I don't know if you've spoken with Suzanne in our office. I'm not going to ask Suzanne to speak tonight because she'll kill me. She has to do it on the Zoom, but she knows these files so well. And we have such incredible opportunity in Timmins in the North with the immigration that's happening, the transformation of our communities. And we are absolutely frustrated and angry that the Liberals make these promises and then they're not staffing and they're not responding in a timely manner. People's lives are on hold. So we understand what you're saying. We deal with this every day. If you have specific issues, call the office. Suzanne will work with you. But it does need, and I'm glad you asked our leader about this, we need at the federal level to really light a fire on this government to get these issues on immigration dealt with, because it's holding back development in our region in a big way.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Jagmeet. Liam, I saw you had a question about university and tuition.
Yes, and thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak today. Thank you, Mr. Angus, Mr. Singh, and everyone for coming today to ask questions. My question is a little bit about college and university students and the tuition, rising tuition that they're seeing. But to start my question, I just want to say I'm a fourth generation New Democrat. My great-grandparents were members of the CCF CCF. You know, the NDP has played such an integral role in my life. It's part of why I personally want to become a New Democrat member of Parliament someday to fight for the needs of Canadians everywhere. With the growing challenges we're facing, we need continued strong leadership. And so I'm very grateful to be a part of this party. But like many young Canadians, one of the challenges I'm facing to getting to my dreams and succeeding is the substantial debts I have encountered in university. I'm a University of Ottawa student, and like thousands of students across the country, you know, we're seeing record high debts in college and university students. Young people are having to put off buying homes, getting married, and doing so many things in life that you know are cherished and are kind of are everybody wants, let's just put it that way. And so my question tonight is, what specific things are you advocating for to kind of tackle this quiet crisis that is occurring across the country and often unspoke of, to help young people in college and university succeed, and so they can achieve their dreams?
I can jump in from the federal level, and then maybe one of the provincial folks want to jump in as well. But what we want to see happen, first of all, Liam, I would love to see you as a future member of Parliament. And big shout outs to your family. They raised you right, kept you in the New Democratic family. That's awesome. I just want to say, yeah, young people are not just our future, our present, and we need to have young people feel no barriers when it comes to pursuing their dreams, going to college or university, going to an apprenticeship. There should be no barriers for young people to pursue their dreams. So at the federal level, we want to increase funding to one day realize our ultimate goal, that barrier-free education from kindergarten to post-secondary, professional, skilled trades, whatever it is. We want to see no barriers in anyone's life to achieving their goals. So that's our ultimate goal. And in the short term, a couple of things we want to do right away. Immediately, we want to help students who are graduating worried about a lot of debt immediately and permanently remove interest off the federal portion of student loans. There should be no interest charge to any student ever. We want to give students a 5-year break. So right after you graduate, you don't have to worry about paying back that loan, that you should get 5 years to figure out what you want to do, find the career path, not feel that crunch that you've got to immediately get to work and start paying back that loan. 5-year break, no additional expenses, nothing accrued, no interest, just 5 years to figure things out. If folks want to start earlier, they can, but having that 5-year break, I think, would help. And then going beyond just permanently waiving interest, we've seen this federal Liberal government forgive corporate loans. In 1 year alone, they forgave almost $7 billion of corporate loans. We believe we need to start forgiving student loans. So we've committed to a plan to forgive student loans, to give students that stronger start in life so they don't have to worry about that extra burden of having student debt. So those are some of the things that we want to do short term, long term. And our goal is eventually achieving a world where no student, no young person ever feels a barrier through whatever level of education they choose to achieving their best potential and achieving their dreams.
Thanks, Jagmeet. Really appreciate that. Next question, I think, is more for our folks from the Ontario Legislature, Guy and Gilles. Nicholas, if you have a question about the quality of education that you'd like to ask verbally.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. I just wanted to talk briefly about the declining quality from online education. I mean, I don't think any of us are under the impression that it's of the same quality. And so as the price of tuition continues to rise, how can we justify charging the youth the same for a lower quality product?
Mm-hmm. Gilles?
I got to find the unmute button. Listen, it's always been the goal of New Democrats in order to lower and eventually eliminate tuition fees, because you need to look at post-secondary education as an investment in our future and an investment in our economy. The more we have people who are trained and knowledgeable on everything from the sciences to whatever, the better our economy will operate. So we have some very specific policies that we're putting in place for the upcoming election. Part of that deals with how we're able to at first deal with, OHIP, OSAP loans and repayment, all of that kind of stuff. So it's made easier. But the goal is to eventually get to a point that you can lower tuition to the point where you have access to education, not based on how thick your pocketbook is or how rich your parents are, but by your will to learn and to go out and do the things that need to be done to build a stronger economy and a better world.
Yeah, I want to step in here, not having gone to university, but I think about it a lot. My dad was 40 when he got to go to school because he was a minor son. He had to quit school at 17. Getting a degree, my dad was able to become a professor. That was the power of a university education. When I was young and I went off to play in a punk band, all my friends were able to pay their university working in the summer at the mine or the mill. And they didn't have to work too hard. They came, everyone knew they were coming home for the summer, and they got enough money in the summer and they paid their tuition. And then the professors, that was the cream of the white collar, people who got an education, who were committed. I was at Nipissing just a few years ago, and I met all these incredible young professors who were engaging with students, who were really making that university exciting. And they all got fired because the university decided to put the money into the sports program. There are serious problems. What happened at Laurentian, is a crime. It was mismanaged. We have to say that it was mismanaged, and the people who mismanaged it are now overseeing its destruction. All our universities are focusing on the wrong thing. Our students are paying massive levels of debt. Our professors are being treated as though they're working at a McDonald's. It's very debilitating, very demoralizing, and it's not what we should be doing. And so we need to do a rethink. And I think we need to be willing to say, what is the value of post-secondary education? What is the value of people getting PhDs and getting skills and inviting young people to think? We need to be a knowledge economy, and I think we need to move towards free tuition. We need to move towards being able to say education will be a lifelong thing in the 21st century, and people in Canada should be able to get top quality education, not get treated by professors get treated like they're at the Burger King. So that's my thoughts. I'll turn it back to Laurent because I know we got to keep going before we run out of time. That was my rant for the day, by the way.
Thank you, Charlie. Linda, go ahead.
Je peux juste rajouter?
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
La plus grande ressource qu'on a en province, c'est pas les minéraux, c'est la prochaine génération.
Exactement.
C'est pour ça que qu'est-ce que Charlie il dit. That's why what Charlie is saying. We need to go to tuition free, because like I said in French, our biggest, our most the richest resource we have is the youth who are going to replace us in the future, and they're going to contribute, and they're going to make this province great, even greater. So we need to move in what my colleagues have said towards, so that it's not about the richest that get the best education. It's about everybody getting that. C'est à propos de l'individu que peut-être ses parents n'ont pas l'argent, que l'individu que lui, on perd tellement de ressources en cause que les personnes ne sont pas capables d'envoyer les enfants dans des institutions. Puis pour rajouter ce que Charlie a dit, le gouvernement provincial de l'Ontario a oublié qu'une université, là, c'est pas une usine à diplôme. C'est pas une usine à diplôme. Ils sont là pour donner aux communautés qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin à la province.
Merci, Guy. Linda, I see you had a question about housing and earlier about paid sick days. So I invite you to ask the one of your choice verbally if you'd like to. If not, I'll read it aloud. Okay, I'll read it aloud.
Sorry,
go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
Je suis comme Gilles, je suis pas capable d'enlever le piton. I couldn't unmute myself.
Pas de problème, s'il vous plaît, vas-y.
So my question, it's more of a concern. It's like what we're doing about housing. I'm from Northern Ontario. I grew up fighting by watching Charlie do things at Red Squirrel Road and the mining and all of that, and being very pro NDP at 12 years old. I was out with my father, canvassing for the NDP, and actually worked at a polling station. But the housing is really the biggest issue here. And it's going to go back to everything that you guys are talking about. The housing market is so insane that paid sick days, not having paid sick days, not the CERB amount, while many think that $2,000 is a lot of money, in so many places you're paying almost $2,000 just to put a roof over your head, never mind having to deal with all the other stuff and getting daycare because your children are out of school and all that. So the amount of homelessness this has created just in this last year alone, which now contributes to the opioid epidemic and the insurgence of cases going through encampments and places like that. It all comes down to, we have to be able to afford to live. Mm-hmm. And when we can't afford to live, with even these things that are in place, it's just a domino effect at what it's doing with everything else. And I mean, all you have to do is look at the statistics on how much all of these other problems have increased from 2020. It's incredible. And the Landlord Tenant Board in Ontario is evicting people at exponential rates because these things are being done online when people can't even afford a computer or data to get on their phones or whatever to defend themselves. The housing has to be fixed first and foremost in order to get, and I mean, I agree with the long-term care as well, and that's just part of housing as well. It's a different kind, but I mean, I think we all have a basic human right to live comfortably in a home.
I think that's
Thank you, Linda. Go ahead, Charlie.
I think that's over to Jagmeet.
Yeah, no, I think the housing crisis, Linda, merci infiniment pour poser la question parce que c'est vraiment clair que, comme on a dit, on a plusieurs crises. On a une crise causée par la pandémie, mais aussi on a une crise de logement qui est clairement present à travers le pays. So this housing crisis is something that is impacting Canadians across the country. And it used to be something that people said, oh, it's a Southern problem, a Toronto problem, a Vancouver. But the reality is it's actually impacting everyone across the country. People cannot find affordable housing. And I'm talking whether you're a young professional trying to find a place to live, trying to buy your first home, rent a place, low income, no income, housing is at a crisis level across the country. So what we propose is a part of the recovery is to acknowledge the problems that have been there for a long time and fix them. And you mentioned that not only is this a problem that's been there for a while, but it's become worse because of the pandemic. So we need to just, the same way coming out of the world wars, we built just massive investments in housing and built affordable housing, homes. Post-World War homes were built across Canada. Some of the first homes that people were able to afford were these post-World War homes. But we need to build cooperative housing. We need to build rental. We need to build houses, townhouses. We just need to build housing. Indigenous communities are suffering from lack of good quality housing. So we really need to take this opportunity in this really difficult time coming out of this pandemic and just invest in building places for people to live, places for people to call home. This is something I really care a lot about. We also need to tackle the fact that housing is being used kind of like the stock market. People are dropping their money. Foreign investors are dropping their money into the Canadian housing market and thinking, you know what, this is a safe place to invest. I don't want people to look at housing as a stock market. It is a place for people to live. It is the most important thing in people's lives for them to buy, but it should not be treated like a commodity market. And that's what's happening. And people are investing their money out of from overseas into Canada. We need a strong foreign buyers tax. We need a vacant property tax, and we need to really aggressively build new housing, something I really care deeply about. And we're going to keep on fighting for it.
Thanks so much, Jagmeet. I just want to flag, we're about 5 minutes out from the end of our time here, and I'd just like to give, let's see if we can get maybe 2 more in. I would just like to give our next to last one.
Ambitious.
We'll see if we can go fast. From Andrew from the Timmins Daily Press. Just want to make sure the media gets a chance to ask a question here. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'll keep it real brief. Basically, obviously, housing is more important than ever. Everyone's mostly at home. So I'm just wondering, what tangible progress has been made recently for affordable housing in this country? And if so, what is the latest developments?
I could take it from the federal level. I could say, sadly, just announcements, no progress. The Liberals have made a lot of really big announcements. They got a lot of coverage on those announcements, but they haven't really done anything. And what they did, which is really troubling, is they would re-announce those same announcements. So the only progress that's been made is maybe the Liberals have gotten better at their PR campaign, but they haven't actually gotten better at building housing. And so what we want to do is really look at what we've done in the past. The CMHC federal agency was used in the past to build homes. We actually built thousands and thousands of homes across the country. We need to do that again. We need to get serious about building quality homes. And we also need to be honest about the type of housing. We need all types. I'm talking straight up houses, townhouses, apartment, rental. We need to have affordable housing in all of its forms, whether it's low income or assisted housing. We really need to get serious about building housing in this country, something that New Democrats are committed to doing. We want to see real action. So we see shovels in the ground, projects that move ahead. We need to partner with provinces, for not-for-profit agencies, cooperatives, and just really get down to building housing. There's a serious shortage, a serious crisis, and we've got to get down to work. And that's what we're going to keep on pushing for.
Jill, real quick.
Yeah, just really quick. I just wanted to point out is that one of the things that I was the most proud of from 90 to 95 when we were government, we had the most ambitious not-for-profit housing program in Canada. There's more units that were built across this province, and you just have to look around Timmins. Le Mirage, a number of apartment buildings, not-for-profits were built. But unfortunately, when the Liberals took over power federally and the Tories took over provincially, they canceled those not-for-profit housing programs. We need to bring those back because they're an investment in making sure that people can access affordable housing. And quite frankly, it's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jagmeet. Addy, super quick from you, if you can do it in under 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll go really fast. Mr. Angus mentioned that the government, what they're doing and what they're not doing, and how whenever they claim they'll end a boil water advisory, they're essentially lying. And he's right, because I've seen a video from the Prime Minister 6 years ago claiming that his government will end boil water advisories in 5 years, and here we are. So Mr. Singh, my question to you is, how will you ensure your government is also able to ensure boil water advisories across Indigenous communities are actually history? Because you'll have no choice but to make the same claim, but your actions have to be different to make sure your claim becomes reality. How can we trust you and your government to do the job? I'm an engineer with Water Movement, a nonprofit organization that's tackling this issue through operations and maintenance perspectives, because like Mr. Angus said, the government is not focusing on sustaining the infrastructure to bring clean water. We're literally building a resource to connect Indigenous water operators and focusing on how, once water infrastructure is built, how can they be maintained? So will your government work closely with organizations like ours who are actually working with those on the front lines of the water crisis, or just continue to throw money like governments have for decades now? I believe I speak for all of us when I say we're just so tired of broken promises. Thank you.
I can't think of a better way to end the questions today. That was a really powerful question. And in your question, you provided some of the answer. Really, the goals that have been set previously were the wrong goals. They were just, kind of Charlie mentioned, he said it just straight up. Before, the goals were just to make this flashy announcement that we've dealt with this boil water advisory, but the goal wasn't to build sustainable in-community solutions that are long-lasting, where community has the tools, resources, know-how, capacity to continue the clean water moving forward. They were just, let's cut a ribbon, let's make an announcement, let's get a showy, flashy result, but not sustainability. And so I think what we have to do, one is we have to bake in, the goal has to be sustainable clean drinking water, not just clean drinking water for 1 week, for one announcement, but sustainable clean drinking water. The solution has to be making sure communities have the capacity, the training, and the ability to maintain that clean drinking water moving forward so it's sustainable. And what we saw with the Liberals is they made the announcement, but then they didn't back it up with monetary commitments. So when they make announcements without money attached to it, the reason why we make a lot of noise about that, because we know that's fake. As soon as we see a commitment and it doesn't have any dollars, it's not a real commitment. So what we're going to do is make the commitment, make the goal sustainability, long-term solutions, and also back it up with money. Most recently, the Liberals were found to have gotten nowhere near their targets and had not done any of the steps necessary to achieve their targets. So they promised to do it within 5 years, didn't actually take any of the steps to get there. And the Auditor General said the whole thing was bogus from the beginning. Now they put in the recent budget some real dollar figures, which really begs the question, why didn't they do that 6 years ago then? Why didn't they do that when they initially made the promise? Again, it was a fake promise. So we're going to back it up with a real goal, work with organizations like yourself, people on the ground who are committed to that sustainability, and we're going to get it done. I don't buy that in the year 2021, in one of the world's largest economies in the world, a G7, G8, G20 country, that we can't get this done. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't accept those excuses.
I know we're running out of time, Laurent, but I'm going to just jump in here to.
Charlie had to.
Say,
it makes sense. Charlie.
Tell you no, Charlie. Go ahead.
Because with Gilles, with Jagmeet, with Guy, we have seen the front lines. We have been in grassy narrows, Jagmeet and I, where the plastic bottled waters line up because there's only one place, and it looks like a garage that you get clean water from. Jagmeet and I were standing at the northern store where the grandmothers wait to get bottled water in the morning before the store opens. Gilles and I have been in the communities where people have been medevaced out, who've gotten sick from dirty water. Our friend Saul Mamakwa, who's not here tonight, we've been in Cat Lake and other communities. This is not a technical issue. This is not an issue of will. This is a human rights issue. The fact that children get sick, children are medevaced out, that people grow up their entire lives without access to clean water in the richest country in the world, it's a human rights issue, but it is also a gross violation of the fundamental principles of this nation. And to say, well, sorry, we didn't get it together, or sorry, we didn't meet our mark, that's not good enough. In any other industry, heads would roll. People would be fired. There would be accountability. In Indian Affairs, it's just another day at the office. This was a system built to fail. It was a system built to keep people down. And we have to dismantle that system and put in a system that guarantees that every young child growing up in Treaty 9, when they turn on the tap in the morning, they get clean water. That's not a hard thing to ask for of Canada, and that's what Canadian people are asking for. We are absolutely committed to that because all of us have seen the effects of the failings firsthand, and we will hold whoever in government, even if it's our own government, we will hold feet to the fire to make this happen.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Jagmeet, and thank you, Adi, for your question. That was really powerful. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us tonight. That's all the time we have for questions. It was a real pleasure to hear from many of you, and I'm glad that the live questions worked out so well. Un grand merci à tout le monde pour se joindre à nous ce soir. C'était vraiment un très grand plaisir de vous entendre. And I just want to flag, of course, that we'll be taking a quick group photo of people. People are so inclined with the leader before he has to go. And thank you, everyone, once again. It was a real pleasure to host this evening.
Hi, from Treaty 9 Moose Factory, and I'm the great-great-granddaughter of a treaty signatory. My great-great-grandfather put his finger on the pencil.
Wow.
Up in, so I'm really ingrained in our relationship and in its success. So it's Niskabism in my language, which is April, which is about the goose, and think about a flock of geese, and it's the people in the back calling the goose in the back. And I have a goose call, and I wanted to share it.
All right, yes.
I am I'm a musher, and you'll meet some of my team.
Oh yeah, we've been there.
Those are my puppies.
Yeah.
Those are my big dogs. They're all from Moose Factory. They're all rescues, and I want to do a land-based program to connect kids back to the youth, to the land. Yeah. And I want to do this goose call to make sure that people are using their voice.
Wow.
Wow,
Thank
you, Phoebe. Thank you.
That's uncannily good. Really, really.
I hear they
the dot.
fly at night over my house. They're heading to Moose Factory. They fly at night. I hear that call. So I'll think of you the next time I hear that call. Thank you, Phoebe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
And thank
so
you, everyone. Thank you.